What number is this? 65?
64.
64. Episode number 6.
That's right, everyone. We're live for episode 64 of Trek Live. It's going to be a little bit of a mixed bag this episode. We're going to be talking some TOS, and obviously, Bill and I think we need to address the elephant in the room, and that is, Bill, what is that?
There was a trailer from New York Comic Con for season 2 of Discovery dropped yesterday.
Yep.
Which we would be foolish to ignore. I think we have to talk about it. And how you doing, Rob? Welcome.
Welcome, Rob.
And then on top of that, on Thursday night, for those who live in the United States and Canada, unfortunately for Rob,
sign his petition.
Yes.
Yeah.
The short trek, the first short trek episode, Runaway, dropped on CBS All Access and whatever Canada gets their Star Trek content on these days. So we're going to talk about both of those things, and then we're going to talk about the planned City on the Edge of Forever kind of deep dive topic that we announced earlier in the week. I just hit it on my rewatch and finished season 1, and kind of like we did with Best of Both Worlds, I think it's an episode that's like so big and so widely praised by pretty much everybody, and it's always at the very, very top of every list. I think it kind of merits looking at it and trying to unpack if it deserves all that praise, and if it's maybe oversold, or if it's right, or all those kinds of things. So we're going to do all three of those things today, which is going to make this a jam-packed episode. We're going to try to cover everything with the attention it deserves, but we're going to try to move quickly too. Like, we're not going to let this go on forever. So we're going to jump right into it. Are you okay with skipping our like rewatch updates? I haven't done much this week, so I don't have a lot to share, and I know you've had a busy few days.
Yeah, I had a busy few days.
So we'll get to that next week when we've maybe made a little more progress and have a few more things to talk about. We're just going to jump right into the trailer for season 2 of Discovery. So I guess my question to you is, what was your like first takeaway? What was your first impression of it? Did you think it was a better trailer than the first one for this season? What did you think overall?
I think it was a better trailer overall. To me, the first one was a little bit more of a teaser. Still a trailer in my eyes, but this one kind of was the full, everything. They covered a lot more. We got to see a lot more of the new, actors and scenes and action. So it definitely, I think, gave us a better taste of what we can expect for season 2 of Discovery.
Yeah, I got the distinct impression that it, maybe unlike the first trailer, this one may have covered some ground for episodes that go into the season. No way of knowing that. We don't know any of the context, but I have a feeling that this is covering a wider, array of episodes than maybe that first trailer was. I got the strong impression from that first trailer, kind of like the first trailer for season 1 did. It focused very heavily, I assume, on the first episode or maybe 2. Where this one felt a little more all over the place, which was good. I mean, I feel like I have a decent idea of what the season's going to kind of be about and where they're trying to go. Where in the first trailer, it was, like you said, very much a teaser. There were little breadcrumbs, and it made it clear that it's going to be about these 7 signals that are out there, and they're going to go out and try to figure it out. And Spock might have a connection. And I think we just got a little more meat to chew on with that kind of idea with this trailer. Maybe where it's kind of headed. I guess the couple of really big things that I think we have to touch on that I've seen a lot of people really excited about and really seem to like is that image of the D7 Klingon battle cruiser.
Yeah,
that got pretty much everybody that I saw pumped up. Like, I think that was a pretty common screenshot people were like throwing out there on Twitter, like, holy crap, this is awesome. And I agree. I think that's really cool to see. I love that ship. I love that design. We don't see it a whole lot in like modern Trek. You see it a lot in TOS, obviously. Anytime you see the Klingons, that ship's pretty much the ship. And then it's in like the motion picture in Star Trek 6. I guess it's in a little bit of TNG, but as the shows go on, you see less and less of it. And when it pops up, it's like, oh, wow, that's cool. I love that ship. So definitely stays true here. I think it really looked cool.
Yeah.
And then what did you think of did you catch the really quick glimpse of the Klingons and how they changed their appearance a little bit to more traditional?
Which I was fine with the look of the Klingons from season 1, but at the same time, I still rationalize it in my head that, you know, we didn't see each faction of the Klingon Empire. We just saw one. So, you know, this could have been their plan all along, and you know, we may see season 1-esque Klingons in the show. So, I mean, I still rationalize it in my head that, you know, everything's fine. I'm not big on, you know, big changes because of the audience. But I think we talked about this in kind of past episodes that they should stick to their guns, but, you know, I'm fine with it.
I agree with you. I get the distinct impression that changing the look, I'm cool with it either way. Like I totally adapted to the look of the Klingons in the first season. It didn't really bug me.
Yep.
But I thought they looked really cool in this trailer, like in a more traditional, like, yeah, they're Klingon kind of way. But I have the distinct impression that that's a move that was made to placate the most vocal critics, which is a shame. I agree with you. I think that's a slippery slope to react to you know, everything that the fans are kind of throwing out there. I don't necessarily think that's a really good idea. And I retweeted something somebody posted the other day. There was a quote that somebody found from Nimoy after Star Trek 3, and he's talking about, you know, how to react to like fan criticism. He was citing, like, I guess right after Star Trek 3 came out, people were knocking him for blowing up the Enterprise and killing David, and all these creative choices that they made making 3. And to make it darker, and they did a lot of like game-changing things. And he was talking about how the fans are fans. They take it in and they either like it or they don't, but they're not the creators, and you have to not let them get into, you know, driving where the thing's going, good or bad.
Because there's no pleasing everybody.
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah, you get into that cycle, and I think you can really drive yourself into the ground trying to placate everybody. So I hope it wasn't purely just let's throw a bone to the fans who are loud and criticizing us for daring to change the look of the Klingons. And I hope you're right. I hope maybe we see some season 1 Klingons too. I know, and I think we will, because one of the things that I've heard like the makeup guys talk about a lot is how the Klingon Empire is supposed to be this vast thing that covers a lot of territory.
Exactly.
And come from different planets and kind of have different cultural things that they fall back on, and so I think it would make sense to see Klingons that all look a little different, you know, because we all look a little different. I think that just adds more dimension and verisimilitude to the whole thing. So I hope you're right. I hope you see, you know, the occasional season 1-esque Klingons. I'd like to see some like smooth foreheads from the augment virus. Like that would make me happy. And I think that would all be fitting. But we'll see. I think they looked cool. You know, they definitely looked unmistakably Klingon, which is what I've been saying all along. I think that if you take the current makeup for the most part and you throw a mane of hair on them, they look like Klingons. I think the big thing that like throws people off is the lack of hair. As like that's what really kind of looks different. Of course, it all looks different, but I can very easily rationalize the change in the makeup, the basic makeup stuff. It's just that's production values and you know, more access to resources to spruce up everything. But you put hair on them and they look like Klingons that are just spruced up, and that's what I got from the trailer and seeing them. So those are the two things that I saw, maybe talked about the most, just kind of browsing Facebook groups and Twitter. But a couple other things that I know people are excited about is seeing number 1 very briefly from the cage. She looks awesome. I think she looks just like her.
Yeah.
I saw a tweet that had a picture of Majel Barrett from the cage and her. there's a production still of like her in the transporter room of the Discovery with Pike, and you get like a full shot of her, and they had those two like side by side, and it's pretty good. They really did a good job casting Pike and her specifically, I think, and giving them looks that really make it easy to take the leap that that's those characters. I have a really easy time. I already love Anson Mount as Pike, and I haven't even seen him in an episode yet. He's so good.
I think I have a thing for captains because season 1, I was Captain Lorca. I was Team Captain Lorca all the way, and now I feel like I'm falling into the same trap this season. So I'm super excited to. And he, even from like clips, he's awesome. He's crushing.
He exudes everything that you want in a captain. Yeah, and that seems like it's in all the interviews I've read. That's where they're kind of trying to go. It's a definite reaction to Lorca. Like all the extremes that Lorca had, Pike's got the opposite extremes. Like he's the
prime Lorca. Prime Lorca. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Basically, yeah. Yep. So I'm really excited to see where they go with him and number 1 and all the Cage connections and all. One of the things that came out of the panel is, well, first off, I guess to maybe connect these two things, is Anson Mount, who plays Pike in the panel, said that season 2 has a more episodic feel than season 1. Like as they're searching for these 7 signals, each episode has like a very distinctive feel.
Which is classic Trek.
Yeah. Yep. So it sounds like it's going to be obviously this overarching theme of this mystery with the pulses and Spock's involvement and all that. Like there's going to be an ongoing storyline, but it sounds like that each episode is going to have its own voice, which I'm all about. And we got a little bit of that. I've talked about that before in season 1. I think mostly in the first half of season 1, that feeling's kind of there. But as the season gets going, it's maybe a little less so. So Pike said that, or Anson Mount said that, and then I guess Alex Kurtzman said something about the Talosians from the Cage, the big-headed aliens, are in the season at some point in one of the episodes, which is like crazy. I know, like something I don't think anybody would expect them to do. But this is post the Cage, so the Cage has already happened at this point. So somehow, some way, they're going there, or something happens there. So they're pulling out all the stops. They're doing all kinds of stuff. They're clearly embracing the canon of Trek. By going to Pike and number 1 and Spock and pulling out the Talosians and like that. Those kinds of things really kind of make me excited that they're not shying away from the continuity of TOS and Trek. What any other takeaways from the trailer as a whole? Like and no mid-season break. They did say that too. It's 13 straight weeks.
Dang.
Unlike last year.
It's gonna be crazy.
Rob, thanks for reminding me of that. Yeah.
I'll just point out the pacing of the trailer. Really fast paced. Super action packed. Great moments. Great character moments. We got some ship shots in there. And then it kind of really slows down at the end. Very dramatic. That's another thing that I noticed. So.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
And at that end, that slowdown is obviously the Spock reveal. Ethan Peck is Spock. Disheveled and bearded. People are debating that. Like, can Spock have a beard? Which I think is kind of ridiculous. But it is what it is. I have no problem with it. I think he looks really cool. He reminds me of, and I saw a lot of people saying this too, like almost how he looks in the motion picture at the very beginning when you find him on Vulcan. He doesn't have a beard there, but he's disheveled. His hair's long and he looks dirty and not really worried about his appearance. So it kind of reminded me of that, and I think he looks really cool. I think he sounds Spockish.
He's got the kind of the cadence, the same cadence as Leonard Nimoy did. Yeah.
One of the things that I remember from 2009, like people love Zachary Quinto as Spock, and I'm 100% on board with that. I love Zachary Quinto. But one of the things that people do kind of say is like Zachary Quinto doesn't have necessarily like the deepest voice, and Leonard Nimoy does. And Ethan Peck seems to have that like deep voice that Nimoy is kind of famous for. So that I'm excited for that. We got very little of that. We got like a single shot of his face and some voiceover. How you doing, Thad? Welcome. But yeah, I think he looked great. I think he sounded cool and not a whole lot to go off of yet, but
Yep.
I'm excited to see where they go with Spock. I think that's a gutsy thing to do. Like I've said since they announced it, or since the trailer, I guess the first trailer, where they kind of laid it out and made it clear that Spock was going to be involved somehow. I think that's a really brave move. So yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes. There was something else I wanted to talk about with the trailer, but I can't remember. Yeah, I think the Red Angel thing, Rob. I think it's interesting. The trailer kind of lays the breadcrumbs for that this is sort of a shared vision between Burnham and Spock. Spock's been seeing this thing since he was young, and now Burnham's seeing it, which opens up all kinds of possibilities. Why are they both seeing it? Obviously has something to do with their connection, which I've seen some people speculate is it Cybok involved or something, which is like would be insane. Talk about brave moves.
It's a big Cybok.
That they're asking for it if they do that.
Yeah.
But I'm open to anything. Who knows? It could be, could not be. It could be something. I hope it's my hope is that it's something new and something that, as much as I just talked about, like I like that they're embracing continuity and kind of pulling things out and going back to some cool things from the past. I hope there are things in the story that are newly revealed and unique to Discovery storytelling. And I'm kind of hoping that reveal, whatever that is kind of something new. Thad's talking about his favorite things from the trailer. He mentions number one, who we talked about, is definitely up there for me. Peck sounding just like Spock, classic Klingon D7, and Klingons with hair, which is pretty much what we've talked about, right? Like that's been our bullet points. Rob's asking Georgiou back. Is she working for Starfleet?
Is she?
She's yeah, who knows? With I imagine she's doing some undercover stuff for her new job, which we got that little extra scene a few months back, telling us that she's going to be working with Section 31. So who knows how that's all going to play out and how she gets involved. But I'm glad to see she's back. I love Michelle Yeoh. I love Georgiou. Yeah. That's saying they show the close up of the badge, so Section 31. I'm sure. Yeah, I mean I think that's been pretty obvious. That scene came out that's going to be a plot point.
Yep.
Jordan's back with us. How you doing, Jordan? Any other final kind of thoughts? I think you mentioned it with character moments. There's some nice little things between like Burnham and Saru. And,
gets injured and
yeah. Yep. And I know that there's been widely reported that there's an episode at some point later in the season where they go back to Saru's home planet, and we don't really see anything there. But I can imagine that maybe being injured would play a part in that. So that's what those kinds of things are giving me the impression that a lot of the stuff that we're seeing in this trailer is kind of sprinkled throughout the season, and maybe less focused on just the first episode or first two episodes. So. Yeah, it was very exciting. I think it was a better trailer than the first one, just by the nature of kind of revealing more and giving a little bit more of an idea of what the tone of the season is going to be like. I definitely got me excited all over again. Looking forward to it. I think there's a lot to look forward to.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to talk about the short trek kind of next. Rob, I'm assuming you haven't seen it. Yeah. Thad, Jordan, you guys are here. If you guys have not seen it and don't want spoilers, beware. I don't necessarily want to go into a whole lot of detail with it because I don't think there's a whole lot of detail to go into.
Yeah.
Like spoiler wise, there's not a whole lot to reveal.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple, straightforward stuff. But if you're worried about that kind of thing, maybe a mute. Thad's seen it 3 times. I've seen it twice.
Nice.
Okay. Jordan says he'll mute and we can discuss spoilers. Okay. I'll post something in the chat as we're kind of leaving this discussion. I don't anticipate it taking too long.
Yep. 5-10 minutes should be quick.
Rob says, I don't think we have to worry about Rob. I think he's found his way to it, perhaps. seen it somehow, some way.
Yeah.
So, Runaway. What did you think?
I thought it was fun. I think that with the strategy that they're going with, I think it's a good strategy to kind of build up season 2. Definitely getting us excited with these short tracks, and then the trailer, obviously, I think is kind of the perfect storm. So yeah, I thought it was fun. What are your first impressions?
Yeah, I thought it was fun too. My first impression of it, first time I saw it, I don't want to say I was underwhelmed, but I was like, that was fine. I didn't love it. I think that's mostly a me thing. That's me having to adapt to the short format,
Right.
The more condensed, bang, bang, bang.
Right.
Only the essentials kind of thing. The second time I watched it yesterday, I enjoyed it more. The alien, I think, is cool, but I think what I like about the short the most is the way it kind of reflects on Tilly, and just it's really just about her. It's a completely character arc for her, and tells you everything you need to know about her character, kind of, at least at this point going into season 2.
Yeah.
And I love Mary Wiseman as Tilly. I think she's great. I think she brings a really unique, and I've said this since season 1, I think she brings a really unique, like, green. She does everything that they kind of tried to do with Bashir at the beginning of Deep Space Nine, and Harry Kim at the beginning of Voyager, and Hoshi at the beginning of Enterprise. Like, I've talked about that before too. Like, they always kind of tried to bring out these, like, green, inexperienced, scared, unseasoned characters, and to some success. I think all 3 of those characters do that to some degree, and bring that to their shows. But I think Tilly is certainly the extreme end of that. That they kind of really drive that point home and stick to it. Make that like a defining characteristic for a character, and this short is kind of all about that. That uncertainty and self-doubt, and finding her own path, and not being influenced by the stuff around her to not do what she wants to do. But I didn't love it at first, and I wouldn't say I love it. I think fun is the right way to put it. It's a neat little diversion. It's a little extra, which is what they're meant to be. I think maybe our expectations going into these things are for them. They should be for them to be like little extras, little extra beats of character development, little cool, little supplemental material, but not to necessarily expect like groundbreaking, classic, game-changing episodes, which is natural, of course. I mean, it would be foolish to expect otherwise. But I think once I watched it the first time and went back to it, I enjoyed it more with that mindset.
Yeah, I think it's just gonna add more to the character that it's putting the spotlight on, and it's gonna influence how we look at the character in the season. So I'm not. Again, I agree. I'm not expecting a lot. So that's what I see it. It's just kind of character building, world building, little snippets.
Yeah. Agreed. Did you like the guest star, like the other alien, the second part of that two-hander?
Yeah, I mean it was fine. I think it was it was focused kind of on the character and what the characters were doing and how they kind of mirrored each other. I don't know if it was like actual protocol to not report this, but I don't want to get into that. But yeah.
Those are the kinds of things that on the first go round, I was like, when you do it short and you have to fit a lot into 15 minutes, it kind of forces you to. I struggled with like really nobody noticed, like nobody knows about this happening. But the other way to look at it maybe is that it's being told in 15 minutes and it's kind of skipping around and you don't know what's going on outside of what you're watching. So people might know, and there might be more going on than we see just in the short format of it. So a lot of it is a me thing, trying to adapt to the short the short format. It's not something we've ever seen before in Trek. It's a brand new thing.
Yep.
Perhaps as maybe Worf is in charge of security on the Discovery, which is a good point. How many times have we seen stowaways like sneak onto the ship in other iterations, mostly in TNG? I feel like a lot in TNG. that's not a new idea.
Mhm.
And yeah, but I did enjoy it all. It did whet my appetite. It made me want Discovery more. And like you said, that combined with just a few days later getting this trailer and then kind of knowing there's another short coming in a few weeks, every month here. And I'm sure we're going to get, little tidbits of news as we're getting closer to season 2 actually getting here on January 17th, which I forgot to mention. It's all kind of, I think you're right. Like from like a marketing standpoint and for like a whetting the audience's appetites angle, it really gets the job done, and it does what they're trying to do. So I'm looking. Rob just said he's looking forward to the Saru Kelpian one. I agree with that. That's the one I'm the most excited for, and I'm interested about this next one that takes place on another ship or a ship with a character that we don't know. Like I'm curious to see what the connection is. If it's completely just a one-off, complete standalone thing that has no real connection to Discovery, or if there's something more going on there. So there's definitely excited to see where these things go, and each of them sounds pretty neat and interesting, and you can find those synopsises on Trek Core or Trek Movie or any Star Trek news website. Any other thoughts on Runaway?
I don't think so.
The ending reminded me of like early TNG. Like I was thinking about like the Dauphin, the episode with Wesley and that alien princess leaving. Like that, there's a scene at the end of that episode with the two of them like in the transporter room and talking about she's got to go do her coronation thing. She's never going to be able to leave the planet. You should come visit. Like it's very similar to an episode like that, and I have mixed feelings about that. Like it's cool that it's like recapturing kind of that old Star Trek, kind of vibe. But I don't know. I don't know if the Dauphin is the episode. I want to be like, man, this is really reminding me of that. I think it's not terrible, but it's so yeah. I think that's going to be it for Runaway for me, at least. Do you have any other final thoughts?
I think we're good to go. Yep.
Anyone who muted. So our kind of topic of the week that we planned was The City on the Edge of Forever. I just watched it in my TOS rewatch. I finished season 1. That's of course right at the end of season 1. Like I mentioned at the top of the show, we did a similar episode when you hit the Best of Both Worlds. We thought it would be a good idea to kind of pause and take a look at that episode and explore if it merits all the high praise it gets and the top of the list kind of status that it seems to always have. And The City on the Edge of Forever is certainly very similar to that. If you survey the internet for like best episode of TOS kind of lists, City on the Edge of Forever is pretty routinely at the top or very, very close to it. Just like Best of Both Worlds is for TNG. So I kind of want to talk about that. Like, is it warranted? How do people feel? I posted a poll on Twitter right after I watched it and asked, people generally, does it meet those standards? Is it the best? Is it Star Trek's finest hour? And most people said no, which I kind of expected. If you ask people generally, like, is this the best episode of all time? Of course, the majority is probably going to say no because everybody's kind of got their own answer for that. But it wasn't like 90% no, 10% yes. It was something in the 65-35 kind of range. So I guess my first question to you, Dan, is I think you watched it yesterday. Over the course of the weekend. What do you think? How high up do you think it sits? Is it worthy of that kind of status?
I think it does. I think it is worthy of that. And I could go into a lot of different reasons why. I get both sides. I get why people see such greatness in it, and I also see like it is a good episode, but I wouldn't say greatest of all time. I would say it's up there in the conversation as the greatest of all time.
Mhm.
You guys know I'm not very good at ranking things. I usually leave that to Bill. But I think it is one of the greatest episodes of Trek of all time.
And that's probably the more realistic question. I think if you box people in and say what, is it the best of all time is kind of tough. Like Thad just kind of rattled off 4 episodes. He said he has it as a great episode, but he would rank The Devil in the Dark, Balance of Terror, and The Doomsday Machine higher. And those are 3 episodes that would be in like my top 5 with City on the Edge of Forever. So I'm right there with you. And I think that's perfectly valid. And it all comes down to like personal preference for which one you would say, yeah, that's the one. That's my favorite. That's the best. For me, it is City on the Edge of Forever. It kind of covers every base for things that I would like. If you were making a recipe for what makes like the classic Star Trek episode, Sitting on the Edge of Forever for me covers like every angle, every corner of that recipe. For me personally, yeah, I think maybe the more interesting question is, does it belong in that upper echelon? Like, is it one of the very, very best? Maybe more so than what I originally phrased it on Twitter as, is it the best in the history of Trek? I think that might be an unfair question. Rob is saying he wouldn't say the episode is top 10 best Star Trek material. However, he would say that it is 1 or 2 moments in the episode that are top 10 moments in Star Trek. That's an interesting way to look at it. I would agree with that. I think it does have some of the best best things in Star Trek. And I'm curious, Rob, like, what are those 2 moments? Share that with us. And I'm curious to see if they're the same ones that I would say. What do you have any thoughts? Any questions?
I have a question for you. What in your mind, what makes it so good, and why is it ranked so high for you? And that's a big question, so I'd like to unpack that a little bit.
Yeah, I think that recipe I was kind of talking about, the things that make up like the perfect Star Trek episode are, in my mind, like, first off, does it have that like unique Star Trek idealism, which is a slippery slope because there are great things in Trek history that turn that on its head. Things like In the Pale Moonlight, things like Similitude, things like things that don't necessarily have that like happy ending, or and this doesn't have a happy ending either, but does it get at that Star Trek idea? Does it play on Star Trek, what makes Star Trek unique from that perspective? And I think this episode does, through Edith Keeler and her worldview and all that. Does it have an emphasis on character? Does it move the characters forward? Does it take advantage of the great characters that the show has? This episode does. Kirk, Spock, and McCoy all having great stuff. Check. And does it have a big, cool, unique science fiction concept that takes advantage of Star Trek?
Check. That's
yeah. So it kind of covers all the bases. It has the character stuff. It has the stuff that makes Trek unique, with the positive worldview and hope for the future, and big, unique, cool science fiction concept with Guardian of Forever. And in my review on Twitter, I said, only Star Trek can like start the episode off on the bridge of a 23rd century starship, go to 1930s New York, and then back again, and it be completely credible and make all the sense in the world, and be emotionally impactful the whole time. Like, have an emotional punch. It's not just like high concept sci-fi. The focus is on the characters, even while it's doing all these big science fiction things. So, that combination, episodes like Yesterday's Enterprise, I think do that. I think Best of Both Worlds kind of does that. Devil in the Dark does that. The episodes that I have like at the very, very top of my list are episodes that cover those bases. But I think City on the Edge of Forever is most comfortably fitting in all of those bases at the same time. It's a difficult kind of balance to find, and I think this episode kind of sets the standard for doing that. Rob citing I asked him what 2 or 3 moments or 1 or 2 moments in the episode he thinks are top 10 moments in Star Trek, and he's saying Edith Keeler, hopeful and inspiring speech, and Spock saying he knows after Kirk lets Edith Keeler die. And Rob saying there's something about her speech that gets him every time. Cliche, but where it was in his life when he first saw it, the speech really resonated with him. Yeah, I can understand that. What the City on the Edge of Forever kind of does is it maybe more so than any Star Trek episode that I can think of, because of the way it handles the Edith Keeler character, and because it's time travel and going to the past and going to even before our time. It was before their time in 1967 when this episode aired, back to the 1930s.
Yeah.
Our characters from the 23rd century are not at a time anymore where the Star Trek future has arrived. They're back in the past where we are, and there's a character who is thinking the same way that the Star Trek characters are going to end up. You know, she sees that future. So it allows the episode to kind of tackle the Star Trek idea like head on and be very meta about it, and not just make it, you know, part of the wallpaper of the show. It's a part of the story. You know, the reason Kirk falls in love with her is because she has the same worldview he does 300 years before that worldview has kind of arrived.
Yep.
That's why he falls so fast for her. Like it's the one time that I think the Kirk, you know, falling for a girl kind of thing totally works for me. It's totally credible in my mind that he would sit there and something would click at a moment, you know, like he would hear her talk like that. And because she's pretty, she's doing good things. She's noble. She's a good person, and she's got this.
How could you not fall in love with Edith Keeler?
Exactly. Right. So Kirk does, and it makes total sense. And that's a difficult thing to pull off into anything, like whether it's a movie or a show. Like how do you capture that like spark happening, like where you fall in love with somebody?
45 minutes too.
In 45 minutes,
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This episode does that. It makes it credible that these two people find each other, and that the spark happens. That's the level of difficulty on that level, and the fact that it is able to tackle the Star Trek idea head on and make it a part of the story is what makes it probably my favorite episode in Star Trek's history. Yeah. Keeler's speech is Star Trek in a nutshell. Like she is telling you this is what Star Trek's about, and Star Trek usually doesn't do that. Star Trek doesn't usually tackle it head on like that. Every once in a while, Picard will give a speech and talk about it and lay it all on the line, especially in early TNG. But that's usually a little bit more heavy-handed than this is. This feels more natural. This feels, and it's more integral to the plot. It's part of why the story has to play out the way that it does. And she's ahead of her time. Like you think about it, if she lives and pushes that philosophy too soon, it sets the planet on a different trajectory that doesn't allow it to happen. You know, like she's a person that's out of time. She's so out of time that she can't fit in that world. You know, like yeah. she has to not be there, which is the tragedy of it. Like the happy thing that could happen is if you could somehow come up with a way to pull her out of there and take her to the 23rd century, and she'd fit right in. Yeah. If they did like what they do with Jillian in Star Trek 4, you know, take her to the future and she'll be just as good off there as she was, you know, back in the 20th century in that case. But in this story, you know, they weren't going to go down that road, but yeah, it's just on all levels, the whole Kirk and Edith Keeler thing is just perfectly conceived and executed, and the performances by Shatner and Jim Collins, they have great chemistry. Like they sell the romance. It's not just the writing. It's not just the idea of having this character who sees the Star Trek future and that creates the spark. Like the actors sell it as well as they could possibly sell it too. Yeah. I think Shatner gives his most like old school movie star kind of performance.
So charming in this episode. So good. He's so good.
He is. He's great in a lot of moments in TOS, and he's got a lot of really good episodes, and he gets knocked a lot for overacting and being cheesy and hammy, and not in this episode. He's not
quietly powerful. It's crazy.
Yeah, he does. He underplays everything, and
yep.
he's not over the top. And one thing I said to you while I was watching it, I think, or right after I watched it, kind of since we're talking about Discovery in this episode too, I'll throw this out there too. You know, people knocked the F-bomb in Choose Your Pain
yep.
in Discovery, and a lot of people hated that. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm almost positive, I've seen this many, many times. I assume it's not just urban legend, but when Kirk at the end of the episode says, "Let's get the hell out of here," that was the scripted television somebody used the word hell on any TV program,
yeah.
In the United States at least. So Star Trek's always been pushing that boundary, and that's my best defense for, I guess, dropping an F-bomb in Discovery.
Yeah.
Go back to TOS. Kirk dropped hell for the first time ever.
Yeah.
So it kind of set the standard that it's going to be okay to do that. But I love that too. I love the downbeat ending. I love that Kirk has to do it, has to let her go, and and he's strong enough to do it, and he knows. And I love the way that they get back, and there's no joy in succeeding. There's no happy reunion. There's no relief in Kirk's mind. He's gone through hell, and let's just get the hell out of here. That last line is powerful stuff. That at the end of that episode kills it every single time. The other thing that I think it does is I think it kind of sets the standard for how Star Trek's going to handle time travel for the next 50 years. I think it's the first time that you get it a little bit in like Tomorrow's Yesterday, but it really drives home this idea of, going back in time and having to be really careful not to change the timeline or changing, you can't just, anything you do could really be disastrous. Going back in time is a dangerous game that, people probably shouldn't be playing. And Star Trek certainly doubles back to that idea a lot over the years. TNG, maybe less so than some others. TNG, I think maybe, Roddenberry apparently set a rule that they weren't going to do like traditional time travel in TNG. But by the time Deep Space Nine and Voyager, certainly, and Enterprise kind of came around, it was a pretty frequent plot point to kind of play with. This kind of maybe set the tone for that quintessential Prime Directive episode for that. When it comes to the time travel element of don't screw around, don't go back in time just to play around. You don't know what you're going to do. So I love that. I think that's another thing. Like if I put another corner in that recipe, it's like the world building thing too. Like Star Trek's such a vast universe. Does the episode like lay groundwork for stuff that's going to come later, or help build up the universe? And I think The City on the Edge of Forever does that too with some of those kinds of things. I think it does lay groundwork for things that are going to come later. And I think the Guardian of Forever scenes at the beginning, before they actually go back in time, I think a lot of that stuff's great. The dialogue from the Guardian of Forever is really kind of like big, epic kind of stuff that really works pretty well. Some iconic scenes, some great cinematography. The shots of the Kirk and Spock through the Guardian, like just really cool imagery happening there too. We just did our episode on favorite shots, and I could have picked 2 or 3 from The City on the Edge of Forever, mostly from that Guardian of Forever planet. There's some really cool imagery there. So I know you don't rank. I know you don't like to rank. I'm not going to put you on the spot too much, but like how high up, as somebody who just watched it and that you're watching all kinds of Trek, I mean, how high up would you put it? Like, would you comfortably put it in like your top 10 of all time? Is it not quite that high? Is it higher than that? Like, where roundabout would you feel comfortable kind of placing it in the grand scheme of things?
This is dangerous territory because to me, there's a difference between like, I guess, best episode and like favorite episode, I guess. I would comfortably put it in the top 3 episodes all time. As far as favorite, best, everything, all the above, top 3, probably.
Do you feel more comfortable talking about this one as a best or a favorite? Like, or both? I mean, do you see it as a distinction there?
Because I really love this episode. Because to me, TOS was so different from anything they'd seen or we've seen or I've seen ever. And this episode is so different from the Trek that we've seen before because it's not on a ship. It's not on a planet. I mean, partially on a planet. It's in 1930s New York, and I think that's one of the things that I love about it and why I think it's in my top 3 is because it's so different from what we've seen. It's so different from the TOS that we've seen, and it just it's a linchpin in time travel episodes too. It's
couldn't agree more. Glad to hear that. And that's one that I agree with what you said. I asked you like best favorite, and I agree that there is a distinction there. And it's one that I can honestly say that I love it as like a favorite as much as I can like respect it as
Yes.
the highest
Agreed.
quality. And like sometimes I can draw that line a little bit there and say maybe it's more in that best. I can weigh further that way than the pure favorite side of things.
Yeah,
it's up there for me. Rob's saying top 20 or 30, which I totally respect. 700 coming up on 800 hours pretty soon here in the next couple of years of Star Trek. So it's all subjective. Like it's there's no wrong answers, as a friend of ours always says. Do you think that this is? We were kind of talking about Shatner's performance in it. Do you think this is? Would you comfortably say is this the best he was in TOS? Do you think this is up there with his best performances as Kirk ever?
I think it's up there as in TOS, or maybe even all of Trek. Yeah, I think it's a great performance. It's not overacted.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my next question too. Who do you think has the better performance out of the big three? Because I think they all do like one of their best performances ever. Spock is Spock. McCoy, I thought he did a pretty good job as a crazy man. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No, he does do a good job. He's kind of scary. Like he's convincingly like not reasonable. Like he's not somebody that you're going to be able to talk down. He's completely on another planet. Like he's not somebody he does a good job with that. And that's not easy to do.
It can be like overdone, but this one to me, especially when pulls and when he falls over, I think that's so believable. And then he gets bed rest, and then he's back to his his charming self. I think that going those polar opposites, I think, is tough to do. So
yeah, I love his scene with Keeler when he wakes up and he's like kind of trying to figure out like what is going on here. Like where am I? Are you who you think like? Are you who I think you are? Or he's some sort of alien or something. Like he's got a lot of really good stuff in it, and I think he has a challenging performance that people don't think about because so much of the attention goes to Shatner and Joan Collins too for this. But along those lines, the performance that I think is quietly awesome is Nimoy as Spock in this, because I think he's so subtle as he always is.
Yep.
But you can see that he's struggling with it too. Like he knows what he's doing to Kirk.
Yeah. Yep.
When he has his like one-on-one scenes with Kirk talking about, she's got to go, she's got to die. He's cold like he always is, but he's not emotionless. Like there's definitely anguish in what he's saying. This is not easy for him. And I think that's another one that's really difficult to pull off. Like he's got to be a friend to Kirk, and the way Spock is a friend to Kirk, and kind of handle him with kid gloves a little bit, knowing how difficult the situation is. So if I had to pick, like who gives the best performance in this episode, I'd say Shatner does, just because he's so central to it. And he makes it go. But Nimoy and DeForest Kelley are both really critical components to giving the episode as much flavor as it has, and keeping it as well rounded as it is. It doesn't slow down at all for me at any point. And it's like when it cuts to not the Kirk and Keeler stuff, and it's Kirk and Spock, or it's McCoy and being insane. It never stops. Like all those scenes work as well as the last scene did. So it's great all the way around. And I think Joan Collins' Edith Keeler is one of the TOS's best guest stars, performance wise. I think she's awesome. Who would you say? Who do you think gives the best performance in it?
I'd say Shatner too, but I just wanted to kind of make a point that there's still great performances. Yeah, they're all great. So
no, you're definitely right there. Is there a favorite moment in it? Best scene? Best Like, when you think of City on the Edge of Forever? What comes to your mind? Like, what's the image or the scene that you think of when you think of this episode?
Probably. I just remember the first time I watched it, and when she gives like her speech up with on the piano on the stage, and you see Kirk's eyes light up and be like, oh, okay, I see you. Yeah, I think that's what I think of.
Me too. Yeah, it's Steve Keeler giving the speech for sure for me. For all the reasons I talked about with tackling Trek head on and the way Shatner plays it without really saying a word. He sells that snap of a finger, it's done. So that's it for me. But right on the heels of that, about on the planet before they go through the Guardian, walking around the Guardian, trying to figure out what's going on, and then just the life, like those scenes really stand out to me too. They're pretty iconic Star Trek moments. Yes, man. Yeah, Rob, I think about that all the time when I watch this. I always watch it and I always fall into that trap. Like, why can't they just bring her back? Like, don't just figure out a way to take her back to the future. I would love to know. I think she would have fit right in. I think she would have adapted pretty quickly because she saw that future. She knew that that's what was going to happen in time. I think it would have. I think that's the tragedy of it, that she would have fit in. It's not a person who would have been a lost cause. Out of time. She was that's the time she belonged to, not the 1930s. I think that's a common, you see things that kind of talk about that, people who are out of their time, people who are like their movies and novels and, things out there that kind of talk about that. And this is kind of Star Trek's take on that, I think. These people who are born in the wrong era. So I can comfortably say that it's my episode of Star Trek. It's my favorite TOS episode. I'd have it. It's been my favorite Star Trek episode since I can remember, basically, since I started doing things like that, thinking about these things. For all the reasons I laid out, I think it covers everything. It does it all. Performances, science fiction ideas.
Checks all your boxes.
It checks all the boxes. In a way that, there are a lot of great episodes that check one or two of those boxes, and they're great. And I think this one does the best job of, covering everything. For me, I'm not. That's not me saying that anybody who doesn't think that is wrong. It's just from my perspective and the way I kind of look at Star Trek. It satisfies me in a way that is unique, I guess. What about, I guess this is a natural question maybe, and it's very difficult, so don't feel free to tell me off and be like, that's a stupid question, don't ask me that. Since we did a similar episode on The Best of Both Worlds, and you just watched The Best of Both Worlds, which of these what's the better episode of Star Trek?
City on the Edge of Forever.
City on the Edge of Forever is better. Okay.
I think both are powerful. Both, check the science fiction concept box really well. I think to me, and I think both performances, by each, I think are great. I think it's that favorite box. I think puts it just above Best of Both Worlds. So
okay. If I had to taken like movies out of it and stuff, like favorite episodes, they're probably my two favorites: The City on the Edge of Forever and The Best of Both Worlds.
Okay.
Like if I ranked everything, they would be at the very top. So I would say the same thing. I'd say City on the Edge because I have that. I just said that's my favorite, but I do think Best of Both Worlds is right in that territory, along with some others in that same like upper echelon, all time favorite territory. So I think there are going to be episodes that we hit in our rewatches. Merit these kinds of standalone episodes where we kind of dive into a single episode. There are some more, and I just passed a few that I think I would love to do an episode just on The Devil in the Dark, because that's pretty upper echelon too, if you ask me. But there are many coming that I'm sure we'll hit as we go. Any Star Trek content you
Yeah.
shout out? Anything
I retweeted something on my Twitter
Mhm.
that Samuel Cockings, he's got a fan film project that he's kind of working on and spearheading. I think everyone should go check that out. It looks freaking awesome. We don't usually talk about fan films a lot, but I think this project kind of looks cool. You don't have to. I'm not telling you to go there and donate all your money. I'm just saying, just go check it out, and yeah, looks gonna be cool.
Yeah, I was watching those guys last night. About they did a live stream themselves on the season 2 trailer, and they were pretty gushing on it. Trek Yards guys are maybe a little more mixed than we are on Discovery as a whole, but I'm always interested in what they have to say. I don't always agree with them, but I respect their opinions, and they're I've always enjoyed those guys, and I was happy to see that they were kind of very optimistic and excited about what they saw in the trailer. So I'll shout them out. And as far as other podcasts, I've had a busy week. I don't know if I've listened to a whole lot. I haven't listened to the latest Trek Ranks yet, political episodes one, but I'm eager to dive into that. There's a Trek Profiles on Duncan Barrett, who is the host of Primitive Culture, which is one of our favorites. Yeah. So I'm eager to listen to that. That's definitely high up on the list. I know Rob just guested on Earl Grey. That's in my queue. He did an episode, I believe, on lessons, right, Rob? You're still in here? TNG episode with Neela Darren and Picard. One of the episodes that Jim Morehouse and I debated in our episode 50, I think it was. So that's in my queue. But other than that, I have a few episodes of Thad's Great Delta Flyer podcast on Voyager in my queue as well. So I have a lot of catching up to do. But yeah, Lessons is the Earl Grey episode. So I love that episode. I'm eager to hear what you guys have to say about it.
Yeah.
We did that in an hour. That's crazy.
Yeah, I think that was pretty well paced, I'd say. You guys know the drill. The discussion does not stop here. Come over to Twitter, Facebook, Discord channel. Great conversation there. Yeah, had a great time talking about TOS. I know it's one of those that we haven't got a lot of love to. Next week
we'll starting to do a little more lately. We've got a few in the last couple months. But
we'll be back next week, probably to discuss another short track and another great topic. Look forward to talking with you guys again next week. This has been episode 64, I believe.
Yep. Thanks for stopping by, everybody.